My fiancé slept with my best friend. A week before our wedding, so I walked away silently, and the fallout destroyed everything they tried to build. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and for a while, I thought my life was finally coming together. You know that feeling when you start to believe all the pain you went through before finally led you somewhere good? That's what Sophie was to me. Proof that I hadn't been foolish for believing in love. She was everything I thought I'd been missing. Confident, driven, and affectionate in a way that made even ordinary days feel golden. We met at a friend's birthday party 5 years ago. She spilled her drink on me, laughed nervously, and instead of apologizing, she said, "Well, at least now you can't forget me." I didn't. From that night on, she became the center of my world. We built a life together. Late-night takeout dinners, shared dreams of a small house near the lake, and Sunday mornings where she'd hum while cooking eggs. Our wedding was just a week away. Invitations had gone out, the venue was booked, and every time I saw her trying on her dress, my chest tightened with gratitude. I kept telling myself, this is what happiness is supposed to look like. Then there was Ethan, my best friend since middle school, practically my brother. He'd seen me through breakups, family fights, everything. Sophie loved him too, or so I thought. The three of us were inseparable. Ethan even joked, "You're marrying up, man. Don't screw it up." Looking back, maybe that was the first sign. The way he said it, half smile, half smirk. But at the time, I didn't question it. I trusted both of them completely. That week, everything felt perfect. Sophie was radiant, Ethan was supportive, and I was on top of the world. I had no idea that beneath all that love and laughter, something was already breaking, something that would destroy everything I thought I was building. And it all began with one quiet change in her eyes that I didn't notice. Yet, the week leading up to the wedding was supposed to be filled with joy. Family dinners, last-minute decorations, and a sense of anticipation. But instead, I started to feel something off. Sophie was there, smiling, laughing with everyone, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. I kept telling myself it was just stress. Every bride goes through it, right? But little things started piling up. She was constantly on her phone, texting late at night, tilting the screen away whenever I walked by. When I asked who she was talking to, she'd sigh and say, "Just the planner, babe. You wouldn't understand how many details go into this." I believed her. I wanted to. Ethan had been around more too, helping with decorations and logistics. He was always good at stuff like that. Organized, dependable, the guy who'd show up early and stay late. But there was this weird energy between him and Sophie that I couldn't name. I'd catch them exchanging quick glances when they thought I wasn't looking. Once, I even walked into the kitchen to find them whispering, and they jumped apart like teenagers caught sneaking out. Ethan laughed it off. "Relax, man. We're just talking about how to surprise you on the big day." I forced a smile, but my gut twisted. That night, Sophie came to bed late, smelling faintly of a cologne that wasn't mine. I asked where she'd been, and she said, "Bridal fittings ran long. You're paranoid, love." She kissed me softly, and somehow that made me doubt myself more. I stared at the ceiling after she fell asleep, her hand resting over my chest like everything was normal. My mind whispered what my heart didn't want to hear. Something was wrong. But I pushed it down, convincing myself that real love means trust. I didn't know it yet, but my trust was about to become the very thing that broke me. And the first real crack was closer than I thought. 2 nights later, it happened. Sophie's phone lit up on the counter while she was in the shower. A message preview from Ethan. Just his name, nothing else, but my stomach dropped like I'd seen a ghost. I stared at it for a full minute, my pulse hammering in my ears. I wasn't the kind of guy who snooped. I believed in trust. But that single notification felt like a whisper in the dark. One that said, "You're being played." When she came out, I asked gently, "Why is Ethan texting you this late?" Her eyes flickered just for a second before she smiled too quickly. "He's helping me with a surprise for you. Can you not ruin it?" I wanted to believe her. God, I needed to believe her. So I nodded, apologized even, like I was the one out of line. That night, though, something inside me shifted. Every laugh she gave felt forced. Every touch felt calculated. Ethan suddenly canceled our pre-wedding hangout, saying, "Family emergency, bro. I'll make it up to you before the big day." But his tone was tight, clipped, like guilt wearing a polite mask. I tried distracting myself with last-minute work emails, but the silence in the apartment was too heavy. Sophie was humming in the kitchen, the same tune she always did when she was anxious. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I couldn't read her. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every interaction, every glance between them, every excuse. I told myself I was imagining things, but deep down, a voice kept whispering, "You already know. You just don't want to see it." I didn't realize it yet, but that whisper was about to become a scream. 3 days before the wedding, Sophie left her phone at home. It was early morning, and she was rushing out to meet her cousin for breakfast. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice, but the phone buzzed again, and again, Ethan's name flashing across the screen like a warning light I couldn't ignore. I stood there frozen, staring at it. My hands were shaking before I even touched it. I wish I could say I resisted, that I respected her privacy. But curiosity had turned into desperation. I opened the messages, and that's when everything I believed about love shattered. The thread was full of messages I'll never unsee, words that stripped away every illusion of loyalty. "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. You make me feel alive in ways he never could. I'll tell him after the wedding." My chest felt tight, my vision blurred. They had been together. Not months ago, not years ago, days ago. One message even mentioned the night she claimed she was out with her bridesmaids. I scrolled, each word cutting deeper. Photos, plans, even Ethan saying, "We'll figure it out after the honeymoon." "He'll be fine." I dropped the phone. My hands went numb. The silence in the room felt deafening. All the laughter, all the kisses, all the "I love yous" replayed in my head, suddenly hollow. I didn't scream. I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I sat there for hours, just breathing, letting the reality settle in. I realized I was done being the fool in someone else's story. When Sophie came home, I smiled like nothing was wrong. I kissed her cheek and asked, "Good breakfast?" She said, "Perfect." And for the first time in our entire relationship, I meant it when I smiled back and said, "Good." Because that was the moment I decided to destroy their illusion. Silently. That evening, I looked at her differently, like I was studying a stranger wearing the face of the woman I loved. She hummed while cooking dinner, her voice soft, familiar. My heart ached at how normal she looked, how easy it was for her to live this lie. I sat at the table, watching her move around the kitchen, and all I could think was, "How long have you been practicing this performance?" When she sat across from me, she smiled. "You're quiet tonight," she said, tilting her head. "Just thinking about the vows," I replied, forcing a grin. "Trying to get them perfect." She laughed lightly. "You'll be fine. You always say the right things." The irony nearly made me choke. I texted Ethan later that night. "You good, man? Haven't heard from you." He replied instantly, "Yeah, just busy. You know how it is." I imagined him lying next to her, typing that. My stomach twisted, but my face stayed calm. If they were playing a game, I was going to play it better. The next day was our wedding rehearsal. Everyone showed up. Family, friends, smiling faces full of excitement. Sophie and Ethan stood beside me, laughing, pretending nothing was wrong. Their acting was flawless. I matched it. I smiled. I joked. I hugged them both for the photos, the camera clicking like a countdown to something explosive. I noticed Sophie's hand tremble slightly when I placed mine over hers. She felt it, my silence. The space between us was no longer love. It was a quiet war neither of us acknowledged out loud. That night, while she slept beside me, I opened my laptop and started canceling things. Catering, venue, florist, everything tied to a wedding that was already dead. My finger hovered over the last confirmation button. My chest tightened, but I clicked confirm. The next morning, she'd wake up thinking she still had a groom. But by then, the stage would be set for the quietest revenge she'd ever witness. That night, after canceling everything, I sat alone in the dark. My laptop screen went black, reflecting the faint outline of a man I barely recognized. My hands were trembling. I told myself I was calm, strategic. But inside, I was wrecked. Every heartbeat felt like a reminder that the life I built, the future I dreamed of, had already collapsed before it even began. The apartment smelled like her perfume, that faint floral sweetness that used to make me feel safe. Now it made my stomach twist. Everywhere I looked, I saw traces of her. The wine glasses we'd picked out together, the half-packed honeymoon bag in the corner, her dress hanging in the hallway. Each one was a knife in slow motion. I tried to distract myself. I turned on the TV, but every love commercial, every wedding ad felt like mockery. I muted it and buried my face in my hands. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. "I love you. Can't believe in a few days I'll be your wife." I stared at the message until my vision blurred. How could she say that after everything she'd done? The sheer audacity made me laugh. A low, broken sound that didn't feel like mine. I wanted to confront her, to scream, to ask why. But what was the point? Nothing she could say would make it less cruel. Instead, I grabbed a pen and paper. My words came out shaky, uneven. "You took everything pure I had left. But I'll leave you with silence. The one thing you can't twist." I sealed the letter and left it on my desk beside her engagement ring. The metal caught the dim light, still shining, still beautiful, still fake. That night, I cried for the last time. I wasn't mourning her anymore. I was mourning the man I used to be before she killed him quietly, one lie at a time. And by morning, that man would be gone. The morning of the wedding rehearsal, I woke up before dawn. The city was still half asleep, muted traffic, pale light cutting through the blinds. Sophie was still curled up beside me, her breathing steady, peaceful, undeserved. I watched her for a moment, memorizing the version of her I'd loved, the one that never really existed. Then I quietly got out of bed. I dressed in silence, packed a small duffel bag, and placed the engagement ring and letter where she'd see them. My name on the envelope looked strange, final. Before leaving, I took one last look around the apartment. Every wall, every picture, every memory felt like it belonged to someone else now. I slipped my phone into airplane mode. No explanations, no confrontation, no tears, just absence. By the time she woke up, I was already miles away, driving with no destination, just a hollow ache guiding me. The sky was gray, and rain started to fall, soft at first, then heavier, blurring the road ahead. It felt poetic somehow. The world crying for a love I couldn't mourn anymore. At noon, I called the hotel manager from a payphone and confirmed all the cancellations. He hesitated before asking, "Should I inform the guests?" I said, "They'll find out soon enough." My voice didn't even shake. Meanwhile, back home, Sophie would be discovering the empty bed, the missing tux, the ring on her desk. The silence would hit her before the reality did. As I crossed the state line, a strange calm settled over me. For the first time in days, I could breathe. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew what I'd left behind. Two people who thought they could build happiness on betrayal. And soon, that silence I left behind would start echoing louder than any revenge I could have planned. By the next day, the silence I left behind had turned into chaos. I didn't see it firsthand, but word travels fast in a world obsessed with appearances. My phone, though still off, started to flood with notifications the moment I checked it from a cafe 2 towns over. Missed calls, messages, voicemails. Sophie, Ethan, my mom, even the wedding planner, all of them asking the same thing. "Where are you?" I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I scrolled through the texts, each one sounding more frantic than the last. Sophie's tone shifted from sweet to panicked, then desperate. "Please call me. There's been a misunderstanding. Everyone's here. What do I tell them? How could you do this to me?" That last one made me laugh out loud in the middle of the quiet cafe. How could I do this to her? The irony was sharp enough to cut through the guilt that had been clinging to me. By afternoon, social media exploded. Someone from the wedding party had posted about the runaway groom. and within hours it became the local gossip headline. But the real blow came later. A mutual friend messaged me a screenshot of Sophie's meltdown at the venue. Guests whispering, her crying, Ethan trying to calm her down while everyone looked on. Then the truth leaked. Someone, maybe one of Sophie's bridesmaids, had found the letter I left and posted parts of it online. People started connecting dots. The cheating, the sudden cancellation, the humiliated fiancé and the best friend who couldn't meet anyone's eyes. I didn't reply to a single message. I didn't need to. They were burying themselves with every panicked text, every fake apology, every public attempt to save face as I sat in that quiet diner, watching their perfect image crumble in real time. I realized something profound. Sometimes silence doesn't just protect your peace. It ruins theirs, and this was only the beginning. Weeks passed and I stayed gone. No calls, no explanations, no closure. Just quiet. I rented a small cabin 3 hours away, somewhere between the mountains and nowhere. It had no Wi-Fi, no distractions, just space to breathe. I thought the distance would numb the pain, but instead it made me see everything clearly for the first time. Sophie and Ethan weren't my loss, they were my escape. Then the updates started trickling in through mutual friends. At first I ignored them, but curiosity always wins eventually. Ethan and Sophie had tried to rebuild, pretending my disappearance was some sort of misunderstanding. They moved in together within a month, probably thinking if they looked happy, people would forget how they got there. But the world doesn't forget betrayal. It feeds on it. Friends began cutting them off. Invitations stopped coming. Sophie's family refused to speak to her, ashamed of the public humiliation. Ethan's reputation tanked at work. Apparently, his boss found out through the same gossip threads. One message from an old friend read, "They look miserable, man." Like two people trying to convince themselves they made the right choice. That line hit me harder than I expected, because I remembered what it felt like to fight for an illusion, to cling to something already dead. I wondered if that's what they were doing now. Their pictures online told the story better than words. Forced smiles. Captioned apologies disguised as new beginnings. But every photo felt colder, emptier, like they were haunted by what they'd done. Meanwhile, I was learning to enjoy silence. I fixed things around the cabin, cooked my own meals, and stopped checking my phone so often. The anger started fading, replaced by something quieter, something that looked a lot like peace. But peace doesn't mean forgetting, and as I'd soon find out, karma wasn't done with either of them yet. Months later, I was finally sleeping through the night again. My mind wasn't haunted by what they did, just by what I almost became if I'd stayed. But life has a way of giving you opportunities for closure when you least expect it. Mine came through an email from Sophie's father. He wrote, "I need to hear your side of the story." At first, I ignored it. Then I realized something. He'd always adored me, treated me like a son. He'd paid for most of the wedding. He deserved to know the truth, so I wrote back. No drama, no insults, just facts. Dates, screenshots, the messages I'd found between Sophie and Ethan. I didn't embellish a single word. I ended it with one line. "I didn't ruin your daughter's life." She did. An hour later, he replied, "Thank you for your honesty. I'll handle this," and he did. Within days, Sophie lost her apartment, the one her father had been paying for. The car lease canceled. Her mother stopped answering her calls. I didn't feel joy exactly, but I felt released. Like justice didn't need to be loud, it just needed to be fair. Then came Ethan's turn. His ex-fiancée, the woman he'd left for Sophie, reached out to me through a mutual friend. She wanted closure too. I told her everything. I sent her the same screenshots I'd sent Sophie's father. She forwarded them to Ethan's entire office mailing list. By the next morning, his job was gone. His reputation shredded. I didn't say a word to either of them. I didn't need to. They were unraveling exactly the way they'd planned to build their new life, together until it all collapsed under the weight of their own choices. And the best part? They still didn't know it was me who pulled the final thread. Almost a year passed before I heard from Sophie again. By then, I'd rebuilt my life. A new city, a better job, a quiet apartment where no one knew my story. The pain had dulled into something distant, like an old scar that only aches when it rains. Then one night, an email popped up in my inbox. The subject line was simple. "I'm sorry. Curiosity got the better of me." I opened it. Her words were raw, desperate, the kind that only come when someone's truly hit bottom. Ethan left me. He said he couldn't handle the guilt anymore. "I lost my job, my friends, even my family. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I needed you to know I'm sorry. I really did love you once." I read it twice, then closed my laptop. No reply, no anger, just silence. Later that week, I heard from a mutual friend that Ethan had spiraled. Heavy drinking, short temper, no one left in his corner. The perfect couple had become two ghosts haunting their own choices. Sophie moved back in with her mother temporarily, trying to piece together her life. Ethan skipped town completely. It was strange, though. I didn't feel vindicated. Not really. I felt detached. Like I'd finally outgrown the version of myself that needed revenge to feel whole. They had destroyed themselves without my help. All I'd done was step out of the way. Still, part of me wondered if she sent that email for closure, or for permission to stop feeling guilty. Either way, I wasn't going to give her either. Sometimes, not responding is the loudest answer you can give. And for the first time since it all began, I realized I didn't owe her a single word. It's been 2 years now since the day I walked away without a word. Sometimes I still think about that morning, the ring on the desk, the silence in that apartment, but not with pain anymore, just clarity. It feels like something that happened to a different man, someone who had to be broken to understand what peace really means. After everything, I learned that closure doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from acceptance, from realizing you don't need to explain your worth to people who chose to destroy it. My revenge wasn't in ruining their lives. It was in rebuilding mine. I started traveling again. I went back to the places Sophie once said she wanted to see someday, and I saw them alone. Paris, Kyoto, the Grand Canyon. Every photo I took was proof that healing doesn't need company. I met new people, built new memories, and somewhere along the way, laughter stopped feeling like something I had to fake. Sometimes friends still mention what happened. They say things like, "Man, I don't know how you stayed so calm." I tell them the truth. I wasn't calm. I was shattered. But anger only keeps you tied to the people who broke you. Silence, though. Silence sets you free. As for Sophie and Ethan, I don't check anymore. I heard once that she's working in another city, that he's disappeared completely. Maybe they found peace, maybe they didn't, but that's not my story anymore. My story ended the moment I realized I didn't need to make them pay. The world did that for me. Now, when I think about love, I think about honesty, loyalty, the quiet kind of strength that doesn't need revenge to feel powerful, because walking away wasn't weakness. It was the only way I truly won.